Your eyes don't sit still for very long. Visual media uses shape to build pathways in architecture for them to explore. You can feel and identify these corridors in an image by taking a quick glance. Your eyes will take in and evaluate a hierarchy of information. We describe this phenomena as visual movement. We use this physical analogy, movement, to convey a sensory experience of design. Flat shapes that inspire the navigation of a two-dimensional world. In our observational drawing process, we use a receptive and analytical eye to activate this dancing abstraction. In the last video, I explored the concept of resolution. Today, we are looking to physically engage with our drawing and composition. In this series, I'm creating drawings of my hand wearing unusual homemade gloves. A physical interaction I can't ignore. Maybe like the difference between touching and looking at fire. In composing a drawing, touching the flame can help establish a more intangible reference for representing that feeling on the page. Ow. When I was drawing today, I found this cantilever composition that was made up of 4 heavy shapes. 2 smaller shapes in the upper half that felt structurally supported by what was going on underneath. The drawing pivoted on balancing 2 points of interest and used lines interrupted by the format to move our eye through the maze. What is the reward or incentive for traveling through this maze? I believe it's phenomenological, or sensory. That feeling from the burning flame, hopefully less painful. In your sketchbook, make 3 drawings of 3 different subjects. Then make 1 drawing with all 3 subjects. Comment your title for that drawing down below. As social actors, words have a surprising power on our sensory perception of the world. We're able to see a lot more the last year, I think, because of the pandemic, a lot more of the world outside of ourselves. And I feel like that's a really valuable perspective to have in this time. I haven't decided what format I want. Do I want it to be more square? Do I want it to be longer, taller, smaller? It's growing right now, and I think I might need to beat back into it. When I first played Apex and Fortnite and everything, I was only using controller. Either way, I know people who play Apex at insane levels with a controller and a keyboard, but I think you have to kind of commit one. There are a lot of things that you can do to know exactly what the pose is going to be, or how to hold yourself in it. So if you're trying to keep your head in one place, what can you see in the peripherals of your eyes? So right now I have my Ira head and then I have my camera. So if I wanted to keep my head in this one place, I would just keep those exactly in the same position. In this, sometimes what I do, if I move my hand a lot, which I'm doing, to go back into the same pose, in the drawing, I mark down maybe 6 points. I want to see where this line intersects my knuckle right here. I want to see where this key interrupts that bend in my kind of ring finger. And then I also want to see where these shadows start. And if they all line up in proportion, I know my hand is exactly back to where it was. It's useful to know that things change, and if you collect small bits of information, you can let them change, and then eventually you'll collect enough information that everything settles into its most common or most regular shape or form. I don't like making my life easier for myself when it comes to figure drawing especially, but other things too. You can't control observation. Observation is you seeing other things. You're not activating those things at all. It's not you're ever going to have a perfect scenario for seeing, so you have to learn how to balance and mitigate the change that's happening in your own perception. And I think it's a really good analog for other types of perception, so social perception, understanding someone else's perspective. Art is probably one of the most useless genre names because it describes so many things. Yeah, I think it especially feels important to me to like look at my experience as an artist and like be really honest about it, because like as a teacher, it's important to question the value of what I do and what other like fine arts professors do. Like what is the value of going, like I want to bring value to the school that I teach at. The best way to do that is by questioning what value do I bring. And that includes like looking at my own experience, especially since I went there. The whole time I'm working on this, I'm kind of keeping a collection of marks that signify shadow space. But the problem with that is that as I go forward into the drawing, as my process starts developing, the key changes. So the things that I was paying attention to initially with like the darks and lights are now a slightly different proportion, because maybe now I'm grouping things that I thought were in the light side of my drawing. Now I have them grouped in with like the darks. This shadow on my glove is kind of lighter than all of these other shadows, but it's still much darker than like the light on my fingers or like the light over here. It like kind of separates from the lights, so I can't keep it connected with that. So now I have to like kind of readjust all my little marks that I was using to like keep an eye on where the shadow space is and see if I can fix that proportion in some way. I taped my keyboard down to the table with like this like really strong double stick tape, so that like I could shake the table and nothing would move. Trying to do these drawings, I always have the same exact layout of everything on the desk, so it's only my arm that changes, which is really helpful, but also kind of frustrating because it's a little boring. Since my table is such a dark color, it's really nice for like having these areas of contrast in this like middle value space. It's like I just like having the ability to brew like a nice saturated roast. Yes, fleshy bits. That's how I describe things in drawings. This very deliberately blunt descriptions of the subject. I prefer the like friendly way of painting people, because I think like having an intimate connection with your subject, even if it's a still life or something, like having a like relationship develop over the course of a painting really shows and like is embodied in the like act of painting. Absolutely. I mean, that's why I love it. Like that's why I love doing this, is because at any given point someone can come in and like start talking to you, and it'll change like the whole process of what you're doing. Like the images come out differently each time because you have this like external social influence, and it's great. It's like super useful. That's why like having a studio space in a big building with other artists is always really nice. If you're an artist that wants to like be creating stuff that fits into a certain art scene or something, getting a studio in that city would just be incredibly valuable, because you'd start to like kind of seep the influence and aesthetic and the visions and the ideas, and you'd also start affecting that local environment too. So it's like this big trade of information when you can talk to people. But I like having my studio in my house, so streaming works better for me.